Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Knights of the Alternate Table. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about what if Sweden won the Great Northern War, Part 2. And so the IQ card will appear about now, and you can click on that if you haven't seen Part 1. We're at 92 subscribers, so we're so close to 100. So let's subscribe, and still, I haven't seen that many suggestions for 100 subscriber specials, so leave it in the comments down below. Have a good one. We last left off with Sweden winning a war against the Western powers, mainly the Habsburgs, and Germany forming 3 centuries earlier. This would be huge and immediately put an economic threat. Now with Prussia being gone, even though it's ruled by the same people, Sweden would still have to look to not trustworthy Germany anymore, as there was just Denmark separating them on one front. Meanwhile, Venice, being the smallest state in Europe now, would have to look around as its neighbors try to gobble them up. Italy and the Ottomans would both start vying to try and take them out, though Venice, seeing Italy as its more cultural brother and not wanting to be put under the control of a different religion and Ottoman superiority, would quickly sign away all its land to Italy. This would give Italy complete control over the Adriatic Sea, which would greatly hurt the Ottomans' trade routes and supply lines, weakening their economy while Italy starts to grow more and more. With this now done, the Ottomans would be looking to take out Italy and to form a Roman Republic, as that would be better for them, and it might have Europe wanting to be allied to them more. Here is a map of all of the nations and who they align themselves with Britain and Malta forming an alliance, the Central Powers forming between Denmark, Germany, and Italy, the Western Powers with France, Spain, and Portugal, the Ottomans, who would be on their own, and the Northern Powers made up of Russia, Sweden, and Poland. This would cause great tension in the world. Poland, with Augustus the Strong, would rise up in the south to try and overthrow the puppet government Sweden had put in place. Prussia and Britain would both support this to try and undermine Sweden, as both of those two were the closest to them and wouldn't want to be chopped off, as well as Denmark would also support them to try and undermine the Swedish, who embarrassed them in the Great Northern War. Augustus the Strong would start gaining more and more land, to the horror of Charles XII. They would start gaining eastern Poland, with Charles XII managing to push back somewhat in western Poland, but only by a small bit. With the support of Germany, who was a military state, would quickly give forces which would hurt Sweden and put a resentment on towards them more than already was. And Denmark, not having that many, would still be able to supply them with more and more weapons. Poland would gain its independence, though it would be split in two, with the northern part going to Sweden and the southern western part going to Russia. With Russia gaining this land, this would become one of the strongest Russias as a puppet government, and Sweden would also grow stronger, though there would now be many different ethnic groups in Sweden, which would overall hurt them in the long run. Meanwhile, Peter the Great, seeing Augustus the Strong's success, would rise up in Siberia to try and overthrow the puppet monarch and would take it back. His flag would be the Siberian flag with an eagle plastered onto it, as he was the true monarch of Russia. This would distract Sweden, which would give opportunities to other powers in Western Europe, while they would have to march over to Siberia to try and overthrow Peter the Great. Meanwhile, with French, Denmark, and British support, Prussia, the Ottomans, and Italy would look at Sweden while they were distracted quelling Peter the Great's uprising. They would start preparing to march into Sweden land and take away their troops. Poland would also come and support, though they would be another minor power such as France, Denmark, and Britain. Germany would be the main force of this, but Danish lands would be used. Once again, most of Europe would declare war on Sweden and its only ally, Russia, with it also being distracted by Peter the Great. The Swedes would have no choice but to try and turn around and fight off. Denmark and France and Britain would not directly engage but would only support. Meanwhile, Spain and Portugal would be dealing with their own rivalries to really worry about the rest of Europe. With the main army coming back from Russia, they would quickly start to invade Poland, while Germany moves up through Lithuania. Denmark would lose about half of its territory, with Charles XII going there personally himself to try and knock out Denmark, as well as also the Russians would take the Crimea from the Ottomans, as well as some of the Caucasus Mountains. Meanwhile, Sweden, with their immense wealth from the wars, would quickly give the Ottomans some money to take them out of the war. The Ottomans, with a struggling economy after the loss of the Adriatic Sea, would accept, with Sweden gaining the Crimea for Russia. This would greatly influence Russians' influence in the region and would begin a lifelong compete with the Ottoman Empire, much as it did in our timeline. Denmark would also surrender, and the Prussian army would start gaining small bits of land, but not as much as they did before, while Poland would constantly be pushed into, and Russia almost having no invading forces in their territory, besides a couple of the Polish troops marching in to reconquer the land that they lost in the Polish uprising just a little bit earlier. Poland would lose about half of its territory and quickly go through. Meanwhile, Germany would get invaded from the northern, with more sympathetic Germans towards the Swedish cause, as they already been under Swedish rule for so long, but was given to Prussia as a sign of good faith. And Schleswig-Holstein would quickly be invaded more and more. But the Swedes would be so close to Berlin that the Germans would look to surrender closely. Meanwhile, Poland would also surrender, with Germany pulling back all of its troops besides some in Lithuania to try and defend the homeland and the fatherland. Italy, being one of the minor nations in this war, would surrender if Germany surrendered, as they couldn't take on this massive force. Once again, Charles XII, Carlos Rex, took on half of Europe and won, and got to redraw the map. Sweden would form all of Scandinavia. Meanwhile, Russia would annex the rest of Poland that Sweden did not take, as well as Sweden would gain more of the land that they gave back to Germany from the 30 Years' War. This would greatly influence the west of Europe, with Germany now being set up as more of a puppet government. And now France and Spain and Britain would start looking to try and take down, but would need to find some outside. As for Peter the Great, would survive his rebellion, but still have to hide. He would be seen by Charles XII as someone who would constantly rebel, so a warrant would be put out for him to be killed as soon as he saw. Peter the Great, who started this whole thing off, would be one of the people remembered as the person who let Sweden rise to the top, but would be invited back by the Western powers. As for the main man, Charles XII, he would grow in power more and more. With each second, more and more troops come. With each second, he builds up his army and would be prepared to invade Western Europe, try and take on. Meanwhile, outside of Europe, there was really no power, except for China. They were weak at this time, and the age of exploration would continue on as it had in our timeline. Wow, that was such a great video. I hope you guys did enjoy, and if you want to have a part 3, then why not subscribe and let me know in the comments down below. We'll be focusing on the age of exploration and colonies if we do that. So yeah, I hope you guys do enjoy this video, and yeah, make sure to like and subscribe and turn on that notification bells, as it really helps me out a lot. And we're so close to 100 subscribers, so put your ideas in the comments down below as well. Wow, what a great video. On your left is the video about Sweden Part 1, that if you watch the end and you haven't seen the first part, well then, here's your chance. And on your right, a video that YouTube recommends for you. And hey, in the center, that's my channel, why not subscribe?